Sometimes, when I don't have a book to read, I go down to the main library and prowl through the stacks, doing a little prospecting. In itself, it's a rather remarkable, if admittedly low-key, experience. I'm surprised that they still allow citizens access to all those books. And it is a lot of books. They speak of the library at Alexandria, and I'm sure it was a wonder of the world, along with the lighthouse, both beacons. But practically speaking, it was nothing compared to the holdings of my main library. I think it was Ben Franklin who started the practice of lending books in this country, or maybe that's attributed to him like so much else. But if he did, then I bless him, for I consider public libraries to be one of the great treasures of our nation. Anyway, there I was, browsing, and I picked out several selections, some of which worked out better than others. One of the good ones was written by Frank DeFord, the sports writer, and, I would say, a Southern gentleman. It was called Over Time, and it is a recollection of his life, encounters, and travels, some with the high and mighty, much of it, as he put it, covering basketball in Evansville in February, staying at the Come On In, room 417, with the musical stylings of the Bonnie Bell Trio downstairs in the famous Highlight Lounge. There are many anecdotes sprinkled throughout the book, nuggets he found along the way, and a veritable litany of famous names are not exactly dropped, that's not his style, but they appear because they were active then, and he was covering them. And some of them were real characters. DeFord, a bit of a misfit himself, loved the oddballs, reveled in them, cultivated them like orchids. His trade, sports writing, was an unusual choice. He makes that clear, for someone with writing talent. You cover sports, that's the toy department. You're throwing it away. That was the prevailing thought. But he was happy with his choice, and there were sports writers he respected, like Red Smith and Jim Murray. And he himself elevated the prose level, as well as the general tenor of thought in sports coverage. In this electronic age, I'm not sure there's a future for sports writers. It's more blogs for gamblers and fantasy players, and ex-jocks in fancy suits sitting behind desks, cracking wise. I recall hearing that Gary Keeler was growing up in Minnesota, and he was somehow attracted into reading the New Yorker, and again, somehow, that it was for him. He saw his life in that. That was what he wanted to do, upgrade himself into a garrison, grow up, and write in the New Yorker, become a writer like that. I did not grow up reading the New Yorker. I did not grow up thinking that I would become a writer. I did grow up reading Sports Illustrated, reading Frank DeFord, and William Knack, and Mark Cram, and Tex Small, and Robert Creamer, and Dan Jenkins, and others. It was probably my dad's magazine at first, but I read it, looked forward to the new one every week as quite a marvelous thing. Read it cover to cover, sometimes reading about things that didn't really interest me, but reading it anyway because it was so well tuned. That was when learned is probably too strong a word, but at least I bumped into the fact that I could thoroughly enjoy reading about something, not solely because of what it was, a big game or a great race, a famous athlete, but because of what the thing on the pages of the magazine was, a piece of journalism that was so well constructed that it was a pleasure to let the words run through my mind. I did not know then what that could lead to, but reading Frank DeFord's memoir reminds me of myself as an impressionable kid, quite innocently pleased by the quality of his work.